So I have a 1999 Cadillac Escalade, and front end of the Escalade has got to be the ugliest SUV on the planet, but that's beside the point. I ran into a problem with my valve cover gaskets leaking, and I decided I was going to change them because it's just a 5.7 V8, which are usually pretty simple to change. So I'll get the hood opened up and take a look under there. So we get the hood open now, and then of course down in right in here is the valve cover gaskets, valve covers with the gaskets. What I ran into was when I looked online, I couldn't find anything that really said anything about how to change them. They looked like it was pretty easy to get at, just got the 4 bolts on the top of the valve cover to take it off, and I thought I could pull a few things out of the way, but I was wrong. What happened was GM, I guess, in their infinite wisdom, right down here, you can see it, the valve cover is right underneath that white metal mount, right in here. So I thought I could take the bolts off and wiggle it out from under there, but there's no such luck. And of course that little tab that sticks out is part of the air conditioning compressor mount, and also part of the power steering pump mount. So presented a little bit of a dilemma. What I wound up doing was, on this side, of course I had to take the serpentine belt off, which is pretty easy because your idler is down there, and you just take a 3/8 drive ratchet, and it's spring loaded, 3/8 inch ratchet or breaker bar. Put that up out of the way, just as easy as getting the belt out of the way. Then what I did was the air conditioning compressor was mounted down to the mount with 4 bolts going in from on top. So what I did was I just took the 4 bolts out on top of the air conditioning compressor, and I was able to pick the air conditioning compressor up after I got those 4 bolts out and slide a board underneath it to get that up out of the way. I'll do that now. Once the air conditioning compressor is unbolted from the top of the mount, get the bolts out of the way. There's quite a bit of slack in that, so you can get it kind of up out of your way. The hose, the radiator hose, still has some room to play, so that works out all right. But then you still have to contend with the mount. So on the front of the mount, there were 2 bolts and a stud with a nut on it that had to come out in order to free that up. That was on the left side of the motor in the front, but also down in the bottom of the mount. So looking down from the front of the motor behind the fan, you can just barely see. I'll try and point it out right down here. There's a bolt right down behind the pulley on the power steering pump. There's a bolt that goes into the front of the motor. It also holds that bracket in place. I had to take that bolt out. And then over on the other side of the back of the power steering pump, there's a stud. There's a stud down there with a nut on it. And that was also holding it to the frame. But at any rate, what I wound up doing was, once I got that unbolted, I had enough room to pry between here and the bracket and swing the bracket out of the way about 1 inch. Then once I got that bracket out of the way, about 1 inch or so, then I was able to disconnect the spark plug wires from the spark plugs and pull those out of the way and get the wire loom out of the way in the back a little bit. and I also had to just unplug the wire up top, that blue connector. Looks like it goes down across, that wire goes down across and goes down to a, looks like a temperature sensor. And so once I got those out of the way, I was able to undo the 4 bolts on the top of there's 4 long bolts on the top of the valve cover, and I was able to undo those 4 bolts and wiggle the valve cover out of there and clean it and change the gasket. So now I'm in the process of putting it back together, but it wasn't easy, but it wasn't as hard as I thought it would be either. So I'm back, got everything just about back together. I put the 4 bolts back in the top of the air conditioning compressor mount. Those are 1/2 inch, took a 1/2 inch socket to get those out. I got the valve cover all changed, the gasket's on it, it's back in there. Way down the bottom of the power steering pump, the nut is back on that bracket where that belongs. I get it down to the point where all I need to do is put the serpentine belt back on. But I wanted to point out one thing that I made a mistake with. When I looked down in here, it almost looked like I could just pop that fan right out of the way and have a lot of room to get down underneath the power steering pump in order to get that nut out. But if you take those 4 bolts off of the hub for the serpentine belt, that's all that comes loose is the hub. The fan stays there. The fan is threaded on. The fan is threaded onto the water pump. So you get that big nut, and then you get the bolts where the fan blade is connected. But there's nothing that's going to do you any good to disconnect that. So the last thing I had to do was put the serpentine belt back on. Got everything else pretty well buttoned up, and like I said, just pretty simple. It just goes back on the same way it came off. There's your idler pulley down there. I just used a 3/8 inch breaker bar to 3/8 inch drive breaker bar, short one, to put into the square hole on that idler, and then it's just spring loaded, so you can just kind of move it wherever you kind of loosen it up. So let's see if I can get a little ratchet that pops into it, and then get your light position so it's in your way. Then you can just turn it, and then it releases the tension. So pretty simple. And if you forget how it goes, there's a diagram on the front of the motor, right on the top of the radiator, that tells you how it wraps around there. So I guess that's pretty much it for doing the left side valve cover gasket on my '99 Cadillac Escalade. I did that because there wasn't a video online about it, and I couldn't find a service manual at the local parts store for a '99 Escalade, so there you have it.